Storytellers come in many different forms. Some make comics, some write books, and some help create entire interactive worlds. But it doesn't matter what the form. Every story needs a storyteller. And if there's one person who knows how to tell a story in any medium, it's Margaret Stohl. You might know Margaret as the New York Times bestselling author of the Beautiful Creatures series. I know her as a collaborator. We worked together at Marvel on a redefining story for Captain Marvel. So where better to talk about our favorite superpowered Air Force captain than the Intrepid, a decommissioned aircraft carrier. I'm Joe Quesada. I tell stories for a living. Welcome to Marvel Storyboards.
Captain on deck.
Yay, good to see you, buddy.
Margaret is a world builder.
I like the shade. It's a Top Gun look.
From the fictional town of Gatlin, South Carolina in the Beautiful Creatures franchise, to the interactive world she writes and creates for video game developers like Bungie, Margaret tells a story by creating whole new worlds. At Marvel, we work together, retelling the origin story of Carol Danvers in a comic series called The Life of Captain Marvel. But today, I'm interested in a different story. The life of Margaret Stohl.
So what's your origin story?
For me, I knew I wanted to be a writer. I just started writing. So for me, it was always about storytelling. It was like an escape.
I could relate to that totally. I would sit in bed and just concoct stories that would take me away from that time and place. Did your family know you sort of want to do this? Were they supportive?
My mom has sort of been this interesting figure in my life. She would read us books in the car, and I can remember like pressing my face against the car window and looking out at the stars in the desert and listening to my mom's voice, and that was sort of the beginning. I have loved working with people who are different than I am and finding out like what bits are true for everyone. You and me sitting in the room talking Captain Marvel when we figured out Life of Captain Marvel and that origin story. I've never had an experience like that in my entire life. Like I have never had that much of a brain jam where you knew when you left the conversation how good the piece was going to be that came out of it. Like it all happened in the room.
Everybody was pulling from their family. You know, in my family, this happened. In my family, this happened. And it all sort of came together in Carol's story.
I'm heading for the sky. I was made for this, Joe. Pew, pew.
I just want to lay down here right now.
Seriously, Joe.
That's a bit unusual.
It's a little bit like Darth Vader's helmet. This is therapy. Tell me your hopes and dreams.
You ready, Major Stohl? We're about to take off fuel cells.
Pew, pew, beep, beep.
You're published
50 countries.
50?
Yeah.
I thought it was 38.
38 territories. My debut novel, Beautiful Creatures, Southern Gothic. It seems like such a specific thing to write a story set in a small town in the south of the United States, but I still get mail from all around the world from like people in small towns in France and people in small towns in South America who understand that like fishbowl feeling. You really start to change the way you create because you see more and more of your readers and you realize we really are all now living in a global readership.
Clearly, when you wrote the first book, you didn't anticipate any of this. But now, as you continue as a writer, do you feel the weight of it? Is there a sense of responsibility?
Don't you remember that?
Yeah.
Your work starts to get like attention, and then suddenly you see it all like a little differently.
For me, it changed when my daughter was born. You know, it really, really, really changed. Because now I was seeing it through her eyes.
Right.
So my goal, and I always used to say this from my first day as editor-in-chief, is I don't want to break anything. I want to make sure that we take these characters to a point where they advance and they're still fun, but that I've left these characters either the same place or a better place than they were before I got there.
Yeah. This would be cool if we were in space and you could just sit on your porch and look out.
Just open the capsule, just sit there and go, hey, comet, look at that.
See, Carol can do that.
All right, here we go. That's it.
Really bad idea.
Right, really bad idea. No! As a kid playing video games, there's a leap there between wanting to be a writer and then knowing that somebody writes video games
No, I know. Like, I don't think that ever occurred to me for a long time.
Right.
I think my first game was about spies. It was called Spycraft. And then I made adventure games. These ones called Zork. I've always loved the game industry because it's really smart people who are building worlds just like we do.
So here you are 20 years ago, right?
Yeah.
I mean, how many women do you think were in the industry at this point?
There aren't very many women still. There are more and more every day in games. It means a lot because you get to decide who gets to be a hero. Because I want girls to get to be heroes.
Yeah.
I taught a class last week and there was a girl there who was wearing her Captain Marvel flight jacket and had the same Captain Marvel Vans I had, who said, oh, I'm gonna be a game director. And there are very few women game directors, and every time you're the only girl in the room, you bring other girls in there, and then there are more girls in the room, and it changes.
Yeah.
Look at all those. It's the Millennium Falcon.
I get an idea what you were like as a kid. Is there a part of you, your life, or anyone in your life that you feel you've really interjected into Carol Danvers and her world?
Carol's origin being sort of all over the place, we had to really give her her own story arc. Yeah. And I've thought really a lot about that because it's the story of girls in comics in a certain way, right? We were sort of a side character. Yeah. And I bonded with that because I realized that was my journey, right? And it was my mom's journey. So for me,
how was it your mom's journey?
Life of Captain Marvel became about, like, Carol discovers that her mother is also a superhero. So my mom's had MS my whole life, has been in a wheelchair since I was, had a walker for a while, but since I was 12. Yeah. I gave my mom the last panel of the last issue that was like, it's like Carol flying, and she's like had this power fantasy with her mother where they're like kicking butts together, right? And we don't get to see superheroes' mothers. Yeah. And for a girl superhero to have this butt-kicking, equally powerful superhero mom, I framed that panel and I gave it to my mom Christmas morning, and it says, I am my mother's daughter, or she's flying away at the end. That's a thing that, Marvel made happen for me personally. I will never forget.
How much research goes into Carol Danvers? Have you ever flown a jet plane?
I can't say that I have, Joe, though I'd like to.
You'd like to?
Mm-hmm.
I'm about to make your dreams come true. Ready for this?
Bring it, Flyboy. All right.
All right.
Let's bring it.
Just a fair warning, I tend to cry like a baby. Oh, boy.
Oh, my God. Oh, yeah.
Sorry about that. Let me bring us back here. Maybe if I did a barrel roll. Hold on. This is not what they show you in Flight Academy. Uh-oh.
All right.
Uh-oh. I don't think this is how it works.
Oh, my God. That was actually hilarious.
Oh, God. Nicely done. You have a whole new appreciation for what pilots do. I think we could collaborate on one more story together. The Intrepid itself is, it's literally still floating, right, here in the water. And there's an urban legend, if there was a big enough crisis and they needed extra ships, they could actually use this thing. So
that would be awesome.
So what's that crisis? What's the story?
Okay, well, we'll set sail. We'll float with our zombie crew.
Yes.
And then a fleet of 10-year-old girls in their Captain Marvel cosplay will save us, because that's what's going to happen.
I like it.
Chatting with Margaret, I've learned that great storytelling is about creating characters whose paths reflect their own journeys. Placing women at the forefront as leaders, protagonists, and heroes allows Margaret to have a more personal connection to her story. But more importantly, it propels young women forward to become the architects of their own worlds.